Thank you, Mr. Glarz, and thank you to all the panelists. As is my custom, I will defer my questions to the end and ask Ms. Chu now to take her opportunity to ask the panelists the question.
Thank you. I'll start with Mr. Galarza. You highlight the city of San Francisco and many of its practices, and one of those things that you highlight, certainly in your written testimony, is the surety bond program that they have, which is a model of their strong commitment to including the small business community in a major procurement program. How does this program differ from SBA's surety bond program?
I think fundamentally the main difference is the mechanism of, to be quite candid, reimbursement. Under the SBA funding, you're still dealing with a broker who still needs to commit to a certain level of effort to get this contractor bondable and to make sure that he has all the steps in place, his financials and so forth. There's no guarantee that he's going to be successful or, in other words, earn a commission or incur some income for the level of effort that he's put into it. So what ends up happening, unfortunately, is those 1,000 contractors that you mentioned are utilizing are those that have been somewhat the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones that have been cherry-picked that are easy to access. They have financials. They have the tools in place already to be an easy target to be used. The city of San Francisco doesn't use that methodology. They use the contract, the agency that is used to initiate the bonding program is paid a fat fee. And their job is to get the contractor ready to do business the right way. In other words, build their foundation so that at some point in time, they no longer need this surety bond program. They're in the game with the rest of contractors. Ultimately, this is supposed to be a developmental stage to get them to the next level. Not that they should depend on this 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the road. They should be able to build their capacity, learn how it means to be in business, to report, to pay their taxes, to do what it needs to be part of the tax-paying community, and then you will be able to get bonding a lot easier. Those are all simple. Bonding hasn't changed in 50 years. It's the same rules that have always applied. Ultimately, you choose as a contractor whether you want to play by the rules or not play by the rules. Unfortunately, so many small businesses don't understand what the rules are. And so they're lacking that understanding so that they can play by the rules.
And, well, for Mr. Galarza and also our expert on surety bonds, Mr. McCallum, should Congress consider scaling up or piloting this type of bonding program? If so, which agency would be the best to run this program?
I would think it would be through the Small Business Administration. I think there could be additional enhancements made. The industry itself has done a lot of outreach, particularly in the last 3 years, given the economic climate. And as Mr. Galarza points out, oftentimes one of the initial difficulties is that businesses just don't know where to go. They're not aware of what a surety bond is, how to go about it, and so forth. And so the industry has done a number of what they call contractor development programs, which were pioneered by the Surety and Fidelity Association of America. I've been partnering with the U.S. DOT, for example. They did 11 different programs last year. I think they're on track to do 11 or 12 this year. And it's designed to go out there into the small business community and give them initial awareness and education about bonding and other things such as risk management that they need to know in order to qualify not just for bonding credit, but financial credit as well. And there needs to be more investment, I think, by any contracting agency of the federal government in trying to put on these types of awareness and education programs.
If I might add, in the 15 years that the city program has been in place, the millions of dollars of contracts that they've had, they've been able to collateralize these bonds with as little as 40%. And one of the key reasons that it works in San Francisco is because the city itself has put $5 million in escrow. And that $5 million means that the city has a vested interest in making sure the contractor is successful. After all, it's their money that's backing their own bond. And so to make sure that we're all in together, so to say, rather than having an adversarial role, the city comes to the table and says, how can we make sure you as a contractor is successful? What is it that's going on in this project that's preventing you and the project success from meeting success? So given that it's their money, they have a vested interest in making sure it succeeds.
Okay.
If I may add an additional point, one of the things that our members seem to find out that a lot of times with an emerging business, there's a reticence to take their hard-earned capital and apply it for the services of a construction attorney or a construction accountant. That can be a significant fee for them when they're just getting started. At the same time, that's exactly what they need to be doing to make sure that they're building their business infrastructure so they can succeed and go to the next level. And there are sometimes local programs that will, through a grant of funds, will help with securing those kinds of professional services. Or alternatively, there may be opportunities through, for example, the SCORE program, where you have retirees who are construction lawyers or accountants come and provide those kinds of services for businesses.
Thank you. Those are great suggestions. Now I'd like to direct a question to Ms. Privatera Biondo. I was very interested in your recommendations because, of course, in federal government, we have this 5% goal for women-owned businesses, but we're only at 4.04%, which is a huge amount if you think about the fact that we have over $500 billion worth of federal contracts. So we really need to improve this situation. And in your testimony, you bring up the practice of prime contractors bid shopping subcontractors, and they'll submit their proposal with the women-owned business or other small firms, but once they get the contract, then they make this last-minute substitution with a business that offers a lower bid, and then they'll pocket the difference. It's a terrible practice, and has a negative effect on women-owned small businesses. How could we stop prime contractors from this bait and switched? I know you talked about requiring the listing of subcontractors, but if you could expand upon that.
Sure. In Kansas City, at the city level, they have implemented a program. So when you even bid on a traffic signal project, and if they ask for small business, minority participation, other venues inside that, you actually list that information at the time of bid. And then it goes back to a human relations department. So in this case, it would be a contracting officer. They review that information. At the time of bid, those subcontractors actually sign an affidavit saying, this is my number, this is how much my bid is, I'm good for it. And so when it's submitted to the city sees these are the major subcontractors listed. So that way they know, unless something happens after the fact, at least the city can vet out what happened. If, the company needs to remove themselves from the project or whatever that may be. But we have found that that has eliminated a lot of the after the fact shopping.
Now I'd like to ask about the bond limit, the maximum bond limit. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act temporarily increased the maximum bond limit from $2 million to $5 million, and bonds of up to $10 million could be authorized if a contracting officer certified that a bond over $5 million was necessary. Unfortunately, this provision has expired, and I know, Mr. McCallum, you talked about increasing it would certainly help small businesses compete for bigger contracts. Should Congress permanently extend the bond limit, and what maximum bond limit should be available? Anybody on this panel?
The women believe that it should be extended at the R rate that was in existence prior to this. It's expired, so at a minimum where it was before.
As you recounted, it was $5 million increase during the economic stimulus, and then up to $10 million should a contracting officer certify that there were appropriate circumstances. We think a $5 million limit would be a good limit. I think it's recognizing that even for smaller procurements, they're getting larger. And it would give these small businesses who are participating in that program the opportunity to seek more work on federal. But you have to remember that the program itself is helpful in other contexts, not just federal work, but other public work contexts as well, where they may need that credit line.
Okay, and my final question is for Ms. Galarza and Mr. Galarza and Ms. Privatera-Biondo. Agencies are required to review contracts that bundle requirements of two or more goods or services that previously provided were